The pencil moved before he did. That was the detail Elias Thorne kept coming back to. Not the face, not the scar, not the eyes. The pencil. He remembered watching his own hand complete the jawline on the Hargrove sketch before his brain had issued the instruction. A half-second delay between intent and action, as if something else had finished the thought for him. He didn't report it. He told himself it was fatigue. He told himself that 22 years of forensic illustration does something to the hands, builds a kind of muscle memory so deep it operates below conscious thought, the way a pianist finds the chord before they hear the note. He told himself a lot of things in the weeks that followed. He stopped telling himself things after the mirror. Elias Thorne spent 22 years as a forensic sketch artist for the Marin County Criminal Investigations Bureau. In that time, he produced over 400 composite images, faces reconstructed from memory, from grief, from the uncertain and often contradictory recollections of people who had seen something they were trying very hard to forget. His work had a reputation. Colleagues described his sketches as too accurate, a phrase that sounds like a compliment until you understand what they meant by it. What they meant was that Elias had a way of producing faces that felt more real than they should, given the source material. A witness would sit across from him, struggling to articulate the shape of a stranger's nose or the set of a man's brow. And Elias would ask the right question at the right moment, and his pencil would move, and what emerged on the page would make the witness go quiet and lean forward and say, "That's him. That's exactly him. Not that looks like him. Not that's close. That's him." His case closure rate was among the highest in the department. He worked out of a converted office on the 3rd floor of the Bureau building, a room he'd requested specifically because it had north-facing windows and no direct sunlight. Forensic artists prefer north light. It's consistent. It doesn't shift. It shows you the drawing as it is, rather than as the sun wants it to be. He worked in pencil, always pencil, never charcoal. He could explain why if you asked, and he had explained it many times over the years to students and journalists and curious detectives who wandered into his office. Pencil leaves a record of the drawing's history in a way that charcoal doesn't. You can see the ghost of every erased line beneath the final image. You can trace the evolution of the face, all the faces it almost was before it became the one it settled into. He never erased the Hargrove sketch. He never had the chance. The Hargrove case arrived on a Thursday in late February. A woman named Carla Delgado reported her neighbor, one Raymond Hargrove, missing after his car sat unmoved in the driveway for 11 days. Raymond was 53, retired, no immediate family nearby, no criminal history, no known enemies. He had simply stopped being where he was supposed to be. The case was classified as a voluntary disappearance pending investigation, the default category for adult missing persons in Marin County. Standard procedure called for a witness canvass. A teenager 2 doors down reported seeing a man speaking to Raymond in the driveway on the last confirmed day anyone saw him. He hadn't seen the man before. He couldn't say where the man had come from or where he went. He was asked if he could describe him. He said he could try. Elias sat across from the boy for 45 minutes. The boy was 16, articulate and genuinely trying. He remembered the man's height, tall but not remarkably so. He remembered the way the man stood, very still, he said, like he wasn't breathing. He remembered, with some certainty, that the man had no hair, and he remembered the throat, though he couldn't say why he'd looked at the throat, only that he had. Something about the throat had caught his attention, and he hadn't been able to explain it to himself at the time, and he couldn't explain it now. Elias asked him to describe the throat. The boy thought for a long time. Then he said, "It looked like someone had tried to open it up and then changed their mind." Elias wrote the note. Jagged scar, anterior, possibly old, and kept his expression neutral the way he had trained himself to do over 22 years, and picked up his pencil. The sketch took an hour and 12 minutes. When it was done, Elias looked at it for a moment before turning it toward the witness. He had the sensation, brief and strange, and gone almost before he recognized it, that the face on the page was looking back at him. Not at the witness. At him. The boy confirmed the likeness without hesitation. "Yeah," he said. "That's him. That's exactly right." 3 weeks later, the second case landed on Elias's desk. A woman named Priya Sato, 41 years old, a middle school teacher, no reported history of mental illness, no financial crisis, no documented domestic trouble, had walked out of a grocery store on a Sunday afternoon and failed to come home. Her car was in the parking lot. Her phone was in her car. Her groceries were in a cart by the entrance, abandoned mid-shop, a carton of eggs still in her hand when the last security camera caught her walking toward the east exit. Beyond the east exit, there was no footage. There was, however, a witness. A man who'd been sitting in a car near the exit reported seeing a woman matching Priya's description stop on the pavement and speak to someone. He hadn't seen the other person clearly. They were standing just outside his line of sight, partially behind a concrete pillar. But he had seen the arm, and the side of the face, and the throat. Elias asked him to describe what he'd seen. The man rubbed the back of his neck the way witnesses do when they're trying to locate a memory that keeps sliding away from them, and said, "His throat." There was something wrong with his throat, like a scar, like someone had drawn a line across it with something sharp. Elias kept his expression neutral. He picked up his pencil. 58 minutes later, he turned the sketch toward the witness. The witness looked at it, said nothing for a moment. Then, "That's right. That's him." Elias looked at the sketch. It was the same face, not similar, not a family resemblance, not the broad category of tall, bald, and scarred that might produce two vaguely similar composites from two different witnesses. It was the same face, the same jaw, the same orbital structure, the same scar on the throat, curving with the same irregular cadence. And something else. Something he had not noticed in the Hargrove sketch because he had not been looking for it, and had not thought to look for it, because it was not the kind of detail a witness ever led with. The man had no eyelids. The eyes were open, fully, continuously, physiologically impossibly open, not wide with expression, not startled, just open, fixed, as if the mechanism that closes a human eye had never been installed. Elias went back to the Hargrove sketch and looked at the eyes. He had drawn them the same way. He had not noticed. He had drawn them that way and then looked at the completed face and confirmed the likeness with the witness and filed the sketch and not noticed. 22 years of looking at faces, and he had not noticed that the man had no eyelids. He sat in his north-facing office with both sketches side by side and told himself it was a coincidence. His pencil was still in his hand. He realized he didn't remember picking it up. He pulled the case files, both of them, sat them next to each other, and went through the witness notes line by line, looking for contamination, looking for any point at which the two witnesses could have encountered each other, or a shared media description, or any external source that might have seeded the same image into two separate recollections. There was none. The teenage boy from the Hargrove case had never met the man from the Sato case. They lived in different parts of the county. They had no mutual connections that the investigation had surfaced. neither had been exposed to any media coverage containing a physical description of a suspect, because in both cases there was no confirmed suspect and no description had been made public. 2 witnesses, no contact, no shared source, 1 face. Elias requested the case files on every open adult disappearance in Marin County from the past 18 months, 11 cases in total. He told himself he was looking for patterns. He told himself it was due diligence. He went through each file carefully and found, in the notes of a 3rd case, a detail that made him stop reading. The case: a man named Victor Suarez, 57, reported missing 8 months prior. No witnesses to the disappearance itself, but a neighbor who had spoken to Victor 2 days before his disappearance reported that Victor had seemed frightened. The neighbor had pressed him on it. Victor had said he kept seeing the same man near his house. A tall man, bald, with something wrong with his throat. The neighbor had described the throat the same way both previous witnesses had described it, like a line drawn with something sharp. Elias contacted the detective assigned to the Suarez case and asked whether a composite had been requested. The detective told him no. There had been no direct witness to the man Victor described, only Victor's own account to his neighbor, and Victor was gone. There was no sketch. And yet, when Elias sat down that evening and thought about the face, when he simply thought about it, without a witness, without reference notes, without any source, his hand found the pencil on the desk, and without looking down, without meaning to, without consciously deciding to draw anything at all, his hand began to move. He watched it. He watched his own hand draw the jaw, the crown of the skull, the orbital structure, the fixed, open eyes, the throat with its jagged lateral scar, and he watched his hand finish the face and stop and rest still on the page, and he looked at what he had drawn. It was the same face. He had drawn it from nothing. He contacted all 3 witnesses the following morning. He told each of them, separately, that he needed to ask a follow-up question about the composite they had helped produce. He asked each of them the same question. Looking back now, what do you remember about the man's eyes? The teenager from the Hargrove case said he didn't remember the eyes specifically. He said, when pressed, that he thought the eyes had been, and he paused here and sounded uncomfortable, like he was reaching for a memory that was resisting him. Open. Just open. That's all he could say. The witness from the Sato case said he had tried not to look at the face directly. He said there had been something about the eyes that had made him want to look at the throat instead, which was also wrong, but less wrong than the eyes somehow. He said, when pressed, I don't think he blinked. The whole time I saw him, I don't think he blinked once. Victor Suarez's neighbor said she hadn't seen the man herself. She'd only reported what Victor said. But she paused before hanging up and said, Victor did say one thing. He said he could always tell when the man had been outside his house, even when he didn't see him, because of the marks. He said there were marks in the condensation on his windows, like someone had stood very close and breathed on the glass. From the outside. She paused again. But Victor said the marks weren't like breath marks. They were the wrong shape. He said they were shaped like eyes. Elias thanked her and ended the call. He walked to his office window. He breathed on the glass. He looked at the fog his breath made. Then he looked at the fogged surface of his drafting table lamp's glass shade, which he had not breathed on, which no one had breathed on, and at the faint marks there. 2 ellipses, side by side, fixed open. He looked at them for a long time. Then he looked at his reflection in the darkened window. His reflection looked back at him, and then, very slowly, it stopped looking like him. What Elias found, after a night he has declined to describe in detail to anyone, came from a source that should not have had the answer, and did. A retired archivist named Dorothea Vance, who had spent 31 years cataloging estate materials for a regional historical society, had come across a file in the 1990s that she had documented, flagged as anomalous, and then essentially tried to forget. She had not entirely succeeded. When Elias reached her by phone and described what he was looking at, the face, the repeated reproduction, the mirrors, she was quiet for so long that he thought the line had dropped. Then she said, "How many times have you drawn it?" He said, 4. That he knew of. She said, "Stop drawing it." He said he wasn't sure he could. She said, "I know." What Dorothea Vance had found in the estate file was a collection of documents spanning roughly 200 years, journals, letters, what appeared to be formal testimonies, and a series of illustrations that she had found deeply upsetting and had not looked at closely since the 1990s. The documents described, in varying levels of specificity and from varying cultural and historical contexts, an entity referred to by different names in different sources. In the oldest materials, in a language Dorothea had needed help translating, the entity was called something that translated approximately to the one who wears the drawn face. The principle was consistent across sources, across centuries, across every document in the file. The entity existed in a state that the documents described as between image and matter. It could not fully manifest in physical reality through its own agency. It required a bridge, and the bridge, the only bridge that had ever worked across every documented case in the file, was a living hand reproducing its face. Not a photograph, not a digital rendering, not a copy of a copy. A living hand. The specific and irreplaceable act of a human being drawing the face from something that felt, to the person drawing, like memory or witness or instinct, but was in fact transmission. The entity finding the right kind of hand, the kind trained to reproduce a face from nothing, the kind that had spent 22 years learning to make the impossible feel exact. Every reproduction brought it closer. Every time the pencil moved, the distance between image and matter grew smaller. 4 sketches in, Dorothea Vance told Elias Thorne, "And you are not yet a mirror. You are something worse. You are a door that is learning to open from the inside." She asked him again whether he could stop. He looked at his hand. The pencil was in it. He didn't remember picking it up. The last documented entry in Dorothea Vance's archived file, the final page of the final journal, written in a hand that had pressed so hard the pen had torn through in places, contained a single, repeated instruction. Do not let it finish the face. Do not let it use your hand for the last stroke. If it completes itself through you, it will not need you anymore. And you will not need to be anything anymore. The journal was dated 1887. The name of the writer had been removed, torn from the cover, cleanly, as if by someone who understood that a name, like a face, is a kind of reproduction. Elias Thorne took a leave of absence from the Bureau in March. His supervisor noted in the official record that he cited personal health reasons and gave no further detail. His colleagues assumed burnout. 22 years is a long time to sit across from grief and draw what it remembers. He destroyed the 4 sketches, or he tried to. He burned 3 of them in a metal wastebasket in his office. The 4th, the one his hand had drawn from nothing, from no witness, from pure transmission, he could not find. He had left it on his drafting table. When he returned to the table, it was gone. He has not drawn anything since. He has not touched a pencil. He has removed every mirror from his apartment and replaced them with blank paper. White paper, unmarked, nothing that could hold a reflection or a face. He has stopped looking at windows after dark. He told Dorothea Vance, in the last conversation she documented before she stopped returning calls, that the worst part was not the face. The worst part was the hand. The worst part was knowing that the hand had been chosen. That across however many living people in Marin County, across however many hands that could hold a pencil, something had found his. Something had looked at 22 years of north-facing light and witness testimony and perfect, devastating accuracy, and had said, "That one. That's the hand I need." He does not know if he stopped in time. He does not know how many reproductions constitute completion. He does not know whether the fourth sketch, the one that disappeared from his drafting table, is still out there somewhere. Whether someone found it, whether someone looked at it, whether, looking at it, they felt the sudden and inexplicable urge to pick up a pencil. There are 4 active missing persons cases in Marin County that remain unsolved. Raymond Hargrove, Priya Sato, Victor Suarez, and a 4th name, added to the file 6 weeks after Elias Thorne went on leave, that the Bureau has not yet released to the public. The 4th case has no witnesses. There is no composite. No one has drawn the face. Not yet. What is it about a face that makes it real? We talk about faces as if they are simply the outward arrangement of a person, a map of the skull beneath, a register of the genes that built it. But we know, functionally, experientially, that a face is something more than that. We recognize faces before we recognize anything else in the world. We see them in clouds. We see them in wood grain and water stains and the shadows on a wall. We have a word for this: pareidolia. The brain's deep, involuntary, ancient need to find a face in the noise, which raises a question that the documents in Dorothea Vance's file asked 200 years ago, and that Elias Thorne is presumably still asking somewhere in an apartment with no mirrors. If we are wired, neurologically, evolutionarily, inescapably, to bring a face into focus wherever we can, what happens when something knows that about us? What happens when something understands that the most reliable way to become real is to find the right hand and let it draw? Let us know in the comments at what point in this story you felt the shift. The moment it stopped feeling like a story and started feeling like something else. We'd ask you to share this one, but maybe look away from the screen for a moment first. Just to check. You've seen the evidence. Now you have to decide what's real. Don't get left in the dark. Click the video here to continue the investigation.